Well, we're continuing our studies of the first chapter of the Gospel of John. We've been introduced to the Logos in verse 1. We had John basically repeating and emphasizing what he said in verse 1, again in verse 2. But now we have a new idea that's being brought into focus by John. He begins this verse 3, panta. You recognize pan is the word in English that is used in connection with things all or things every. Pan-American Highway, for example, spanning all the Americas, that sort of thing is the Greek word here, pan. So all things, this is the neuter, plural, nominative, all things, di autou. The di here is a contraction of dia, preposition, takes the genitive, and when it does, it means through, as in the instrumentality by which something takes place. So all things through the instrumentality of autou, genitive, singular, masculine, referring back to the Logos, all things through him or it, the Logos, came into being. Egeneto, this is the aorist of the word genomai, which means to become. The aorist would suggest it's something that took place at a moment in the past. So all things came into being, sometimes translated came to pass or came to be or became, that idea. Here it's going to, of course, suggest some idea of creation for us. So all things through him came into being. Kai and choris is the adverb, takes the genitive case, without autou, same word as this, without the Logos, him or it. Could be either one, of course. It could just be a masculine noun, although I'm, of course, taking the view here that the Logos is personal, as we've already described earlier. So all things through him came into being, and without him, autou, came into being, same word that we had here. Without him came into being, ouda, not even. Hen is the neuter for the number one. So all things came into being through him, and without him came into being not even one thing. Essentially ascribing to the Logos the instrumentality by which everything, all things, were created, and there's not even one thing that represents an exception to that rule, which logically would mean, of course, that the Logos itself would not be a created being, as some have tried to maintain, but represents that which was eternally tied to, and from earlier comments we've seen, equal to God himself. So that's the third verse, adding now the idea of God through Christ creating all things that we find have been created.